The sun rose gently over Rosewood Fairgrounds, the sky painted in pastel hues of orange and gold. It was Saturday, June 3, 2006, the opening day of the annual State Dog Show in northern Missouri. Trucks and trailers lined the gravel lot as breeders, handlers, and families from across the region unloaded eager dogs, their collars jingling in excitement. Among the crowd was Daisy Hartman, a bright-eyed 19-year-old college student from Springfield. Her Labrador Retriever, Scout, was entered in the intermediate obedience trials. Daisy wasn't a professional handler, not even close, but she loved Scout. And after a rough first year at college, the idea of spending a weekend camping near the showgrounds and competing with her dog felt like the perfect escape. She had that kind of presence, warm, grounded, always smiling, but never too loud. Everyone who interacted with her that morning remembered the same thing, her calmness, like she belonged there even if it was only her second year attending. She wore her favorite flannel over a white tee, denim cutoffs, and her worn Converse. Her brown hair was pulled into a soft ponytail. Scout, obedient and energetic, walked close by her side, tail wagging. Daisy arrived early, parked in Lot B near the southern edge of the field, and set up her small green tent behind the kennel row, a long line of pop-up canopies and crates where dogs were groomed and rested between competitions. Her parents were supposed to join her later that afternoon to cheer her on. For now, it was just Daisy, Scout, and the soft hum of morning preparations. At 8:13 a.m., Daisy checked in at the main tent. A volunteer clipped a paper number 274, to her shirt and directed her to ring 3 for the 9:00 a.m. trial. By 8:45, several people saw her standing near the grooming tables adjusting Scout's leash. Someone even snapped a candid photo of her, holding Scout's paw as if they were shaking hands. The photo later made the news. And then, just after 9:00, she was gone. Scout was found tied to a fence post behind the grooming tent, barking and agitated. Daisy's water bottle lay nearby, still cold. Her competition number was on the grass. At first, no one panicked. It was a hectic event. People came and went all the time. Maybe she stepped away to grab coffee. Maybe she forgot something in her tent. Maybe she just got turned around. But by noon, her parents arrived and found her campsite exactly how she'd left it. Tent unzipped, phone on her sleeping bag, wallet inside. Nothing missing, no signs of a struggle, no signs of Daisy. Her mother asked a volunteer, "Have you seen my daughter, Daisy Hartman? She was competing with her Labrador." The volunteer hesitated. "I saw her this morning, around 8, but I haven't since." That was the moment the energy shifted. By 3 p.m., show staff contacted local law enforcement. The entire fairground was searched. Restrooms, barns, vendor booths. The loudspeaker repeated her name. "If anyone has seen Daisy Hartman, please report to the main tent." But there was no sign of her. Not a scream. Not a footprint. Just gone. The Rosewood County Sheriff's Department arrived by dusk. Officers canvassed the grounds, interviewed vendors, spectators, other handlers. They collected CCTV footage from the fairground's single-mounted camera, an old analog system set up near the entrance. Unfortunately, it faced the parking lot and not the tent area. Nothing unusual showed on tape. By nightfall, helicopters circled above and K-9 units scoured the surrounding woods and tall grass fields. Scout was taken back home by Daisy's parents, still trembling and uneasy. It was like he knew something had happened. The search extended into the next day, then the next week. Flyers were posted across Missouri, then across neighboring states. Missing, Daisy Hartman, age 19, last seen at Rosewood State Dog Show, June 3, 2006. The case gripped local media. Interviews with tearful parents. Theories spreading like wildfire. Was she abducted? Did she fall and hit her head somewhere out of sight? Could someone she knew have lured her away? But the evidence was nothing. There were no signs of forced entry to her tent. No DNA, no witnesses. Her car, untouched. The only strange detail? A groundskeeper named Walter Briggs remembered something. He claimed that around 9:15 a.m. he was behind the far end of the kennel row collecting trash when he thought he heard something. A startled bark, a girl's voice saying, "Hey, wait!" and then silence. But when he checked, no one was there. He assumed it was just a dog scuffle and didn't report it until much later. The authorities reviewed his statement, but with no other leads, it faded into the growing pile of dead ends. The fairground was cleared within days, the event shut down early, but Daisy's campsite remained intact for nearly a week, untouched by her parents, as if hoping she might return. On the 6th day, her father walked alone into the empty field. He sat down beside the tent, now flapping in the wind. Next to the tent pole, lying partially hidden in the tall grass, was a small object he hadn't noticed before, a glowing strip of plastic, faint, blinking blue. It was Scout's LED collar. Only Daisy ever took it off when they were resting, and she would never leave without it. For the first 2 weeks after Daisy Hartman's disappearance, Rosewood County turned upside down. Search parties assembled daily. Volunteers fanned out across the town and nearby state forest. Drones buzzed overhead. Rescue dogs sniffed through ditches and creek beds. Helicopters scanned wheat fields from above. Local businesses donated supplies. Churches lit candles in her name. Every news anchor, every flyer, every press release repeated the same words. Daisy Hartman, 19, last seen at the 2006 State Dog Show, wearing eyes, a flannel shirt and denim shorts, accompanied by her dog, Scout. For a while it felt like the entire state was looking, but with no body, no struggle, no suspects. The investigation hit a wall. It always comes quietly. One press conference gets canceled, a search group doesn't meet, a detective gets reassigned. By the end of that summer, there was nothing left but questions and silence. Her parents, Carol and Jean Hartman, stayed in a motel nearby for nearly 2 months after the dog show ended. Carol walked the perimeter of the fairgrounds every morning. Jean tried to retrace Daisy's last known steps, sometimes dragging Scout along the back paths, even though Scout would whimper when they neared the kennels. By October, they returned to Springfield. But they never stopped waiting. Carol kept her daughter's phone fully charged on the nightstand, just in case. Jean never mowed the backyard garden where Daisy had planted wildflowers the spring before. Scout, once bouncy and vocal, grew withdrawn. He died in 2008. In 2009, a woman in Oklahoma claimed she saw Daisy at a gas station. Same face, same smile, different name. The tip made the rounds online. Detectives followed it up. Turned out it wasn't her. In 2010, a hiker in Kansas discovered bone fragments near a rural trail. People whispered. Maybe it was Daisy. Forensics said the bones belonged to a male, aged 50 plus. The case grew colder than the winters that followed. It was a quiet Thursday morning in August of 2023, just after sunrise. The state fairgrounds in Rosewood were empty, save for a few early risers cleaning out vendor booths and kennel areas. The 32nd annual State Dog Show had ended 4 days earlier, and the grounds were returning to their usual silence. Wayne Porter, a part-time groundskeeper in his 60s, had worked the cleanup crew for over a decade. He moved slowly, methodically, taking his time as he cleared debris from the gravel behind the south row of kennel tents. He'd just swept up 2 crushed soda cans and a torn ribbon when his foot hit something solid beneath the grass. He paused, pushed away the weeds, and saw the edge of a metal dog crate, half buried, rusted, and wedged awkwardly behind a rotting wooden plank. He stepped back. Something felt wrong. The crate was too old to be from this year's show and too heavy to move on his own. A soft smell wafted from the ground. Metallic. Decayed. The grass around it had grown in oddly, sparse and uneven. Wayne radioed his supervisor. Within hours, police had arrived. And within 24 hours, the old fairgrounds were once again a crime scene. The crate was removed carefully by crime scene technicians and brought to a controlled forensic facility for inspection. It was clear the box had been buried deliberately and sealed from the outside with industrial zip ties and duct tape, long worn down by weather and time. Inside they found torn cloth remnants, traced to a flannel shirt, size small. An old leather dog collar tag, etched faintly with the name Scout. Several faded papers, crumpled, possibly notes or a torn event map. And beneath it all, something unmistakable, a shattered LED light panel identical to the brand Daisy Hartman had purchased in 2006. The collar itself was gone, but the cracked light still had fragments of dried blood on its casing. When Detective Monroe heard the news, he didn't speak for a moment. He simply stood up, walked into his home office, and removed the single tack that had held Daisy's photo to the wall for 17 years. The file was reopened the same day. Forensics confirmed the blood on the LED panel matched Daisy's DNA, preserved in her childhood medical records. It was the first physical link to Daisy's disappearance in nearly 2 decades. Monroe requested the entire dog show staff roster from 2006 be recompiled. Booth vendors, Kenny, L-Techs, volunteers, everyone. But something about the crate's location nagged at him. It wasn't just hidden behind tents. It was placed somewhere people wouldn't walk, near a defunct electrical shed no longer used. It was intentional. At the police station, an intern working under Monroe came across an old disposable camera roll turned in anonymously in 2007, never developed due to poor image quality. She ran the negatives through an updated image scanner. One photo showed a group of dog owners posing in front of their crates, but in the corner, almost missed, was a blurry figure crouched behind the kennels near the same spot where the buried crate was found. Zooming in, Monroe could barely make out a face, but the hat was unmistakable. The same dark, wide-brimmed hat the retired groundskeeper Walter Briggs had described in his interview. Monroe exhaled. "He was always here," he muttered, "just behind everything." They began digging back through security logs, old footage, even budget paperwork for freelance hires during the 2006 event. A name began to emerge from old receipts: Royce M. Eldon, a kennel tent technician hired temporarily in 2006. No criminal history, no longer active in the circuit, hadn't been seen since 2007. He'd used a post office box for payment. Monroe put out a request through national channels. Eldon's old address led to a trailer park outside of Tulsa, but the property had been abandoned for years. Inside the decaying trailer, police found several items linked to various state fair dog shows: handler badges, ribbons, and a plastic storage tub filled with newspaper clippings about Daisy Hartman. Pinned to the lid, a photo of Daisy holding Scout. The bottom of the tub contained an empty LED collar box. Back in Rosewood, Monroe visited the now cleared plot where the crate had been found. He crouched down, touched the diacides, disturbed soil, and noticed something odd. Barely visible in the dirt near where the crate had rested was a shallow carved mark, initials etched weakly in wood: D.H. Then 06/23/06, the exact date Daisy vanished. It wasn't a grave. It was a message. Somehow she had been alive long enough to leave it, and someone had buried her voice. People speculated endlessly. Maybe she ran off. Maybe someone at the dog show lured her away. Could it have been someone local? A few online forums obsessed over the mystery, calling it the dog show disappearance. Some believed the dog show circuit had dark undercurrents. Others thought a fairground worker had gone unchecked. But the theories were just that, theories. With no evidence, no suspect, and no public confession, the Hartmans were left in limbo. In 2013, Deputy Russell Monroe was promoted to Chief Investigator for Cold Cases in the Tri-County District. He'd been fresh on the force in 2006, just 29, when he first helped on Daisy's missing persons report. He still remembered walking through the tents that day, notebook in hand, catching that one faint scent of perfume in the grass. Everyone else had moved on, but not Monroe. He kept Daisy's file pinned to the inside of his office door. Not on the desk, not locked away, but where he saw it daily. "Some things," he once said, "keep looking back at you." When asked why the case stuck with him, he'd only say, "It wasn't that she disappeared, it was that nothing disappeared with her, not even a footprint." One thing always bothered Monroe: the LED collar. Scout's collar had been found several feet away from where he was tied, still blinking, still intact. Daisy had bought it the week before for safety during early morning walks. But she never let Scout go off-leash. Never. Why would she remove it right before her competition? The location where it was found, just behind a half-open utility tent, didn't match where Scout had been tied, which meant either Scout broke free or someone moved him. It was the only piece of the puzzle that didn't fit, and over the years, Monroe couldn't stop thinking about it. In 2015, nearly 9 years later, Monroe made an unannounced visit to Walter Briggs, the aging fairgrounds groundskeeper who'd been working behind the kennels the morning Daisy vanished. Now retired, Walter lived in a small farmhouse near the state line. He remembered Monroe, he remembered the show, and surprisingly, he remembered that day clearly. It was about 9:15, he said. I heard something weird, not just dogs barking, a shout, a girl's voice. I know it sounds strange, but she wasn't screaming for help. It sounded more like surprise, like, "What are you doing here?" Monroe pressed him for more, but Walter hesitated. I didn't want to say anything back then, didn't want trouble, but I saw someone too. Tall man, dark hat, near the supply trailer. The supply trailer had long been removed. No fingerprints, no camera, no logs of who entered. Still, it was a new lead, one Monroe couldn't ignore. In the summer of 2016, the dog show returned again to Rosewood for its 25th anniversary. The kennel row had moved slightly north. A new generator shed replaced the old utility tent, but under the same patch of soil where the blinking LED collar had been found, the ground still seemed softer. A few tufts of grass never grew back. Monroe stood there on the morning of opening day, hands in his coat pockets, watching Labradors and collies trot by. Handlers laughed. Crowds applauded. A girl nearby held her dog's paw just like Daisy once did. No one remembered anymore, except him. With the initials carved into the crate's foundation, the case was no longer just reopened. It was ignited. Detective Monroe, now fully immersed again after years of cold silence, knew this wasn't a random act of violence. It had the marks of ritual, of someone watching, someone methodic. Ally choosing where, when, and how Daisy Hartman disappeared. And all signs now pointed to one man, Royce M. Eldon. But who was Royce? Public records told very little. He had no criminal background. Never drew attention to himself. He'd held part-time jobs at dog shows and agricultural expos across the Midwest between 2004 and 2007, then abruptly vanished. His last known income, a check cut by the Rosewood State Dog Show Committee in July 2006. No tax filings, no driver's license renewals, just gone. Until now. Investigators returned to the decaying trailer near Tulsa, Royce Eldon's last known residence. It wasn't just abandoned. It had been deliberately left behind, as if someone wanted to shed the skin of their former life. Inside, Monroe and the forensics team found something far more troubling than memorabilia. Behind a false wall, they uncovered 3 metal storage cabinets, rusted and locked. Inside the first, dozens of dog leashes, collars, and registration badges, some dating back to shows as early as 1995, each one tagged, categorized. In the second, photos, hundreds, mostly dogs, but interspersed among them, young women. Almost all were handlers, volunteers, or dog owners, captured in candid moments, laughing, distracted, crouching beside crates. The third cabinet was different. It contained notes, handwritten logs, each labeled with initials and a date. The entries read like field observations. One was labeled DH 06-1506 to 06-2306. The final line under Daisy's name, too curious, too confident, broke rhythm, boxed on sight, remains undetected. Monroe closed the notebook and didn't speak for a long time. In the wake of this discovery, media pressure reignited interest in the 2006 case. Calls flooded the Rosewood PD from locals who had been at the event that year. Most had nothing useful, just memories. But one call stood out. Irene Mallory, then 17, had been volunteering as a kennel assistant during the 2006 event. Now in her 30s and living out of state, she admitted something she'd never told anyone before. She recalled, "Remembered Daisy arguing with an older man wearing a staff badge near the kennel tents, days before she vanished. He was telling her she couldn't bring her dog near the back crates. She kept insisting he didn't work that section. Then he grabbed her arm, not hard, but in a creepy way." When she was shown a photo of Royce Eldon from his old ID badge, Irene's voice went cold. "That's him. That's exactly who I saw." At the State Forensics Lab, technicians finished reassembling the shattered LED panel found in the crate. When connected to a power source, a faint blue light blinked, barely visible. But it was enough. The brand, Canine Track Pro, had included a prototype logging chip in models sold in mid-2006, designed to store short-range proximity data from nearby devices. To everyone's shock, the tech team retrieved 14 entries from the collar's memory, brief signal pings, all dated June 23, 2006, within a 3-hour window. Each ping corresponded to a GPS coordinate inside the dog show fairgrounds, forming a subtle path from the West Arena past the kennel tents, and stopping directly where the buried crate was found. That meant Daisy was wearing the LED collar when she was taken, or had it with her, and it had recorded her final movements. Monroe expanded the investigation beyond Rosewood. He cross-referenced missing persons cases at other dog shows between 2004-2006, any unexplained disappearances of young women near events where Royce Eldon had been hired. 2 new cases emerged. Alyssa Grant, 22, vanished in Missouri after working a summer dog expo in 2005. Kelly Wu, 19, disappeared after a regional dog show in northern Colorado in 2004. In both cases, no evidence was ever found, and in both, Royce Eldon had been hired for temporary maintenance work. A pattern was forming. With the public now fully aware of Royce's connection, Monroe pushed to digitize more of the remaining 2006 fairground surveillance footage, most of it originally dismissed for poor resolution. In one frame from June 23, at exactly 6:32 p.m., a camera pointed toward the far edge of the south kennel tents captures the back of a figure dragging something covered in tarp or cloth. The resolution is too low to identify the person clearly, but on his belt, a faint blue light, pulsing, the same kind of flicker that came from Daisy's LED collar, and next to him, barely visible, a crushed pink backpack, the same color Daisy had brought that day. The frame showing a man dragging a tarp-like object, barely illuminated by a blinking blue light, was the final push investigators needed. Though the resolution was poor, the timestamp, location, and Daisy's last known direction all aligned too precisely to ignore. The man's build, tall, wiry, hunched, matched Royce Eldon. Detective Monroe submitted the footage as part of an emergency request for a warrant. Within 48 hours, authorities tracked Royce to a remote trailer compound in Oklahoma, not far from his former residence. He'd been living off the grid for years under an alias, Frank Mellors. When officers approached the property, he didn't resist. He stepped outside slowly, as if expecting this moment. His hands trembled slightly, but his face was calm, almost too calm. "I figured you'd come eventually," he said, voice gravelly. The search of the trailer revealed more than anyone anticipated. Behind a padlocked bedroom door, they found what could only be described as a trophy room. Shelves lined with personal artifacts, not just from Daisy but from others too. A pink enamel hairbrush, torn concert wristbands, a laminated volunteer badge with Alyssa Grant faintly visible beneath grime. And then, the journal. It was worn, the pages yellowed and curled. On the cover, show notes, 2004 to 2006, written in faint pen. But inside, the content veered into something far more sinister. It wasn't a diary. It was a log. Each section described specific girls, mostly volunteers and participants, noted by initials, their routines, where they walked their dogs, when they were alone, like stalking records. Then came the section labeled DH06-2006. She notices everything. Too observant. Questioned me on third day. Interfering. Won't be ignored. Night patrols too tight. Will have to use alternate access. She wore the collar today. Didn't take it off. Sloppy mistake. Plan set. Lights off after 6:15. No sound. Dog sedated. Execution complete. Buried behind tent 4 under fan duct. No one noticed. It read like a manifesto. Calculated, emotionless. Every word painted a chilling image of someone who had done this before and never been caught. And worst of all, it revealed that Daisy wasn't the first, and she may not have been the last. The crate found behind the kennel tents had provided partial biological material, a fragment of skin and a hair strand. With Royce in custody, investigators obtained his DNA. It matched. Not only to the crate but to the LED collar, which had microscopic traces of blood on its plastic latch, most likely from a struggle. The evidence was irrefutable. And yet, during his first interview, Royce remained quiet. "I only ever wanted quiet," he finally muttered. "They made too much noise. They never watched where they walked." As part of his deal to avoid the death penalty, Royce agreed to take detectives to one final location. On the outskirts of a now-abandoned fairground where a 2005 dog show was held, Royce pointed to a collapsed livestock shed. "They're there," he whispered. "Two of them." Excavation teams unearthed remains of two young women, later identified as Alyssa Grant and Kelly Wu, the two other missing girls, linked to the pattern. Inside the shallow grave, they found remnants of uniforms, old lanyards, and the same type of canine track LED collar, now rusted beyond function. The case, long thought unsolvable, had finally unraveled. Just when police thought the puzzle was complete, a technician reviewing the original crate discovered something overlooked. Inside a panel of the LED collar, under the circuit board, was a folded slip of paper, barely larger than a fingernail. On it were handwritten numbers. Coordinates. They pointed to a hiking trail on the other side of the state, hundreds of miles from Rosewood. What did Royce bury out there? And was Daisy ever really his last? The discovery of the handwritten coordinates inside the LED collar sent a new ripple through the case. Everyone had assumed the horror ended behind the kennel tents, but the numbers pointed to a location over 200 miles away, a narrow hiking trail near Mineral Ridge, Idaho, overlooking a forested lake, remote, forgotten, hidden in plain sight. A special task team led by Detective Monroe and FBI forensic experts moved quickly. 3 days later, search dogs located a disturbed patch of earth beneath a collapsed hunting blind deep off trail. Beneath a layer of moss, they found a third burial site. Inside, a waterproof container, and in that container, evidence even darker than anyone imagined. At first it looked like trash, a broken GoPro mount, a mildewed notebook. But inside a padded envelope was a small SD card, sealed in plastic. When the tech team decrypted it, what they found left the room in stunned silence. The memory card contained dozens of short video clips, most blurry, some with audio glitches, but one labeled simply Test Footage 06-110.06, opened with a clear frame. It showed Daisy Hartman walking through the kennel area, looking over her shoulder. She's speaking to someone behind the camera, but the audio is muffled. Still, the fear in her voice is unmistakable. "You shouldn't be filming this. You need to stop." The camera jerks. She backs away. The footage cuts off. Another clip shows Daisy placing a dog collar, the same LED canine, E-track model, into a plastic bin and writing something on a clipboard. Her face is tight with tension. She glances over her shoulder again, whispering, "I know it's you. If anything happens to me, people will find this." The realization hit hard. Daisy had figured him out. Somehow, within just a few days of volunteering at the dog show, she saw through the small talk, the fake smiles, the casual interactions that Royce used to mask his true nature. Her background in animal safety gave her an edge. She noticed the collars weren't logged properly. Dogs were moved around with no official signatures. Her clipboard records, now found on backup files, proved she had been quietly documenting these irregularities. She was planning to report it. But Royce acted first, and what haunts investigators most, is how close Daisy came to escaping. Inside the same container near Mineral Ridge, along with the SD card, was a thin journal. At first glance, it appeared to be another one of Royce's chilling logs, but the handwriting didn't match his. It was a girl's. In careful block letters, the opening read, "If you're reading this, then you found where he buried me." It wasn't Daisy. It was Alyssa Grant, a missing teen from the 2005 show. The same girl whose remains were found near the livestock shed. Somehow, before she died, she had written notes and hidden them. She described her final days, how she was locked in a trailer cage, how Royce told her no one remembers the lost ones, how she heard another girl's name being whispered, Daisy. Alyssa's journal confirmed a terrifying truth. Royce had been operating for years, preying on volunteers who blended into the background, girls who came for one day and vanished without notice. And Daisy was about to expose him. News of the findings spread like wildfire. Major outlets picked up the story. Old missing persons case. Tests were reopened. Parents of girls who vanished between 2002 and 2006 began contacting Rosewood PD. Detective Monroe, weathered and worn from the journey, stepped up to the podium in front of a sea of microphones. "We failed these girls once. We won't again. This investigation is far from over." Royce Eldon was formally charged with 3 counts of homicide, unlawful confinement, and evidence tampering. The trial was scheduled to begin in early 2024. His public defender submitted a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. But the journal, the videos, the collars, the shovel with his fingerprints, the world knew better. During a final sweep of the old fairground storage unit, investigators cataloged every item, dozens of crates, show materials, abandoned tents. And in a box marked Unclaimed, June 2006, they found a row of LED collars, 12 in total. But the original inventory had 13. One collar was missing, and with it, the identity of a possible 4th victim no one had ever reported. The courtroom in Boise was packed. Reporters, victims' families, and stunned spectators watched as Royce Eldon, a quiet, middle-aged dog trainer once seen handing out ribbons with a smile, was led in wearing a bulletproof vest and blank expression. Inside the courtroom, no one spoke Royce's name louder than Detective Monroe, now a national figure for cracking the case that haunted Idaho for nearly 2 decades. He testified calmly, laying out a chilling trail of breadcrumbs, the collars, the burials, the video footage, and the false logs Royce had kept at past shows. Each revelation brought audible gasps from the gallery. And then came the evidence no one expected. During a forensic presentation, investigators reviewed the inventory discrepancy in the LED collars. There were supposed to be 13 registered to Royce's team in 2006, but only 12 were recovered. The missing collar, the court learned, had last pinged near Twin Pines Rest Area, 45 miles from the dog show site, 3 days after Daisy vanished. When officers researched the area, a groundskeeper recalled cleaning out a porta-toilet stall after the 2006 event and discovering a plastic bag stuffed deep behind the tank. He never reported it, assuming it was junk or a prank. But buried in maintenance archives, the location matched the missing collar's last signal. A second team went back. This time they tore the stall apart. In the wall cavity, they found the remains of a long-decayed plastic tote bag. Inside, a girl's bracelet, scorched at one end, a pair of child-sized gloves, and a scrap of paper that simply read, "My name was supposed to be Hannah." The prosecution froze. No one named Hannah had been listed among the 2006 dog show volunteers. No report, no missing person filed. And yet here was another potential victim, possibly younger than Daisy. Someone no one remembered, or was allowed to remember. In a moment of devastating drama, prosecutors presented the video footage from Daisy's SD card, footage of her confronting Royce, audio-enhanced, replayed before the jury. Royce didn't react, but something shifted in the room. Because after Daisy's clip ended, they played one more. This one found on Royce's backup laptop, recovered during a late-stage forensic sweep. The file had been misnamed, buried under event logs. It showed a small tent, unzipped just slightly. Royce's voice off camera coaxing someone to step forward. And for just 2 seconds the lens caught a child's face. Pale, young, unfamiliar. Not Daisy, not Alyssa, not Carmen. The girl's voice whispered, "I don't want to play anymore." The footage struck a nerve. Public outrage exploded. Investigators now believed Royce may have targeted other dog shows across state lines, possibly even earlier than 2005. Parents of missing girls from Oregon, Nevada, and Washington contacted authorities with new tips. The case became the center of a LTI state inquiry. But for many in Rosewood, it was too much. They started asking hard questions. Why hadn't the volunteer rosters been preserved? Why had no one flagged the inventory gaps? Why were minor volunteers allowed to assist without formal ID or guardian presence? And why had Daisy Hartman, a 19-year-old volunteer, become the one who nearly stopped it all, only to vanish under everyone's nose? The final witness was Lila Hartman, Daisy's younger cousin, who had just turned 30. She stepped onto the stand with a small envelope in her hand, an unopened birthday card Daisy had mailed a week before the show. In it was a handwritten note. "I'm finally doing something useful, Lila. I think this year will matter. If I can prove what I saw is real, I'll finally be taken seriously. Don't laugh. Love, Daisy." Lila broke down. So did the jury. The jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Royce Eldon was found guilty on all counts, including 3 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of evidence obstruction, and concealing a body. But the judge, in her closing statement, made it clear. This courtroom may never know the full number of lives this man affected, but what matters now is that silence no longer protects monsters. Royce received 3 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He was transferred to a high-security federal facility under 24-hour suicide watch. 2 weeks after the trial, Detective Monroe receives a package with no return address. Inside, a small box wrapped in stained newspaper. He lifts the lid and finds a 13th collar. Still glowing, still active. Detective Monroe turned the collar over in his gloved hands, watching the tiny red light blink steadily. It wasn't damaged. It wasn't old. It looked recent. Despite being sent anonymously and wrapped in weathered paper, the LED was clean, uncracked, as though it had just been removed from a dog's neck that morning. He ran the collar's serial code through the recovered database from the 2006 State Dog Show. It didn't match any of the registered inventory. This wasn't just the missing 13th collar. It was a 14th. There had been one more all along, and whoever sent it was still out there. Authorities launched a renewed investigation. They followed postal tracking, fingerprints, fibers on the box. The newspaper wrapping came from a regional print distributed only in northern Idaho. Surveillance footage showed no clear suspect dropping it off at the sorting facility. Someone wanted to be found. Or worse, someone wanted them to keep looking. Detective Monroe was torn. He had solved the case that haunted him since the day Daisy vanished. He'd helped bring justice, helped stop a man no one else believed could be capable of that kind of darkness. But now, as he sat alone in the quiet flicker of his desk lamp, collar in hand, he realized the story wasn't finished. Not for him. Not for the Hartmans. Not for whoever else might still be out there. Rosewood, once known for its annual state dog show, became known for something else. Survival. The fairgrounds were quietly shut down. The entire north tent section, the place where Daisy had last been seen, was bulldozed. In its place, a small memorial park was erected, built from donations sent in by thousands of strangers across the country. A bronze statue of Daisy was placed beneath a row of white pines. She stands holding a leash. No dog is sculpted beside her. Just empty space, the artist's choice, a symbol for what was lost and what might still return. Each year, on June 14th, the community holds a candlelight vigil. Survivors, families of the missing, and townspeople gather to read names. Not just of Daisy and Carmen, but of others never officially connected, girls who vanished between 2002 and 2010, whose disappearances never made headlines. Some of them may have been part of Royce's hidden trail. Others may still be waiting to be found. Daisy's cousin, Lila, launched a foundation in Daisy's name. DH Signals, short for Don't Hesitate, became a national campaign to promote safer volunteer conditions at public events, especially for youth. They pushed for stricter identification checks, mandatory chaperones, digital collar tracking verification, and funding for local investigations that might otherwise go ignored. Lila became a fierce public speaker, not polished, not rehearsed, just honest. She often told the audience Daisy wasn't fearless, but she paid attention, and that might have been the bravest thing she ever did. In time, the campaign led to legislation at the state level, Daisy's Protocol, requiring all state-run events to implement enhanced volunteer background systems. Months after the trial, the Hartmans received a box. It came from a storage unit in Pocatello, where evidence from Daisy's dorm room had been stored and later transferred to family. Inside was an old spiral-bound notebook, her journal. Most of it was filled with casual entries, notes about classes, dog breeds, show prep. But buried near the back were a few pages that changed everything. She had documented her suspicions, unmarked crates, missing girls she heard about in forums, trainers who avoided eye contact, her belief that someone was using the dog circuit as a cover. She had even drawn a diagram of the fairgrounds, circled a tent, labeled it Weird Crates, Loud Barking at Night. The final line read, "If anything happens, check the tent with the green rope, and don't trust the guy with the ribbon pins. He hides it too well." The journal was never submitted into evidence, but it didn't need to be. It was her last word, a whisper from beyond, unfinished but powerful. Detective Monroe retired a year later, but not before driving to a small clearing 15 miles outside Rosewood. There, behind a tree, he buried the 14th collar. No media, no press, just silence. He left a note inside the collar's clasp. "If you're still watching, I found it. Come finish the story." A girl stands at the edge of the Vigil Park. She's older now, maybe mid-30s, wearing a faded hoodie. A leash dangles from her hand, though no dog is with her. She walks up to Daisy's statue, looks at the empty space beside it, then turns, walks away.